It's another amazing episode of Zag Talk, and it is a Thanksgiving themed episode. Hey, Sela.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. There's no holiday more associated with transportation and mobility than Thanksgiving. And I know that you know this as a British person.
Yep, exactly. A
It's
holiday
it
just for
celebrates,
mobility.
when people traveled across the sea from your country to mine and then had a wonderful time and nothing bad ever happened. And everyone that greeted us in this new nation was really happy to meet us, and the end. But no, we will not be getting too deep on Thanksgiving in today's episode of Zag Talk. We will be talking to Kevin Savage, the CEO of Delivery Mates, and also our sponsor for the episode. That's later. But first, plenty of news, 2 wheels, 3 wheels, 4 wheels, self-driving wheels, human driving wheels. So a lot to get into. But the first one, a story that I saw on Zag, of course, but it caught my eye. This four-wheeled pedicab is taken over London. It's the City Queue, and obviously a lot of action in the kind of pedal car space these days. So you wrote this article. What's
Yep.
the gist?
So the gist is, this is a Norwegian manufacturer called City Q, and they've kind of soft launched their four-wheeled electric pedicab in London. They're targeting ride-hailing platforms and operators, so like ideally Ubers of the world with their pedicab. And it's a new launch, so we'll see how it does. Last year, London was the most congested city in Europe. So
Congrats.
I think that's needed, especially with the taxi traffic. And then, as well as being a passenger vehicle, so I think it can carry two passengers as well as the driver for a taxi function. It can also be a cargo vehicle. So it's also targeting kind of gig economy workers that work across both verticals.
Yeah, I could see this actually fitting nicely in the Delivery Mates lineup of pedal assisted vehicles. Get to that later, obviously.
Yeah.
And yeah, City Q, it's interesting. I've seen them around for a little bit. I've chatted with the founder in the past, actually. And
Mm.
it feels like they've been iterating the model. The hardware is a little bit sleeker now. So it's cool. I mean, they were operating in other European cities before this too, right?
Yeah, they have a presence in these mobility hotels that are taking off around Europe. So, one in Oslo basically condenses loads of different mobility and logistics functions in a centralized hub kind of thing. So, I know that they've been operating there in Oslo.
Yeah. I love these things. I mean, this is just me being a mobility geek. These little, half the width of a car. You pedal it, but it's got pedal assist. We've seen a couple manufacturers coming out. Honda's got one coming out that's very sleek. So I want them to work. And obviously, I
Yeah.
think they work much better in Europe and places with more reasonable streets. It's tough
I
to
know.
see them taking off in Texas or something, but there's parts of the US that it could work too, obviously.
Yeah, no.
Best of luck to City Q. And then speaking of investing in, you know, roads that support these kind of things, what's going on with the Dutch? What are they up to now?
So, they've just announced 1 billion euros for cycling, which is part of a wider 2.5 billion transport package that's specifically focused on connecting accessible transport to housing. So the Netherlands has kind of been facing a housing crisis for the last few years. They want to
Where
build,
hasn't been, but yeah.
yeah, they want to build. I think it's 270,000 houses by 2030, and it's just a really good and yeah, it's just a real example of success for a hand-in-hand package of transport and housing. It's something that you don't see everywhere. So, yeah,
And
we'll see
so,
how it does.
we think of the Netherlands as already biking nirvana, right? Everyone's just happily on their bike from place to place, from home to train station. What does the billion in new infrastructure mean? Like, is that new trails in the countryside? Is that
Yeah.
urban infrastructure? What does that look like?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of cycle superhighways, massive cycle routes that are
Nickel
going to be connecting
superhighway.
different regions. I think there's a focus on connecting rural regions in particular, and also cycling infrastructure at train stations and things like that to make sure it's part of a wider multimodal network. So that's the 1 billion for cycling, and then the rest is going into roads, trams, tunnels, and other kind of transport
And so
methods.
when you say cycle superhighway, this is like you could leave your cute little canal side flat in Amsterdam and bike all the way to Delft or Maastricht or Den Haag.
I think
I just want to say Dutch
so.
cities and butcher the pronunciation. Eindhoven.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it's connecting like full on towns and cities together.
Well, thank you to the Dutch for being such a good sport
Yeah, a great
we
example.
make fun of their lovely country. You guys got it all right, so you have to give us something. Well, stateside, we like bicycles too sometimes. So a little bit of good news. So in Seattle, the city has basically just taken live their commercial e-cargo bike program. And honestly, I think impressively quick work from Seattle's city council. The enabling legislation just went through like a month ago. It's already going live. And so basically, yeah, trying to incentivize last mile urban deliveries onto cargo bikes, whether it's e-quads or bikes with little, hauling racks behind them. So sort of similar to, delivery mates or that city queue vehicle, just like, can we get these last mile deliveries, whether it's your Amazon or something else, onto a smaller, greener, and sometimes faster mode because you're not sitting in traffic. You can take the bike lane. So it's not
Mhm.
just, kind of wishful thinking that there's a reason to do these things. But yeah, sometimes it actually is better for the LMD company to put it on a bike and get it there. So
Mm,
it's nice to see cities picking this up. New York's obviously been pushing this a lot, but it's kind of starting to take off coast to coast. And
mm,
Seattle, they've been, I'd say, one of the vanguards in just thinking about delivery. And so maybe it's, the Amazon being located in their backyard, but
mm,
they've been really, I suppose, progressive about thinking about labor and wage legislation around, like DoorDash, Uber Eats couriers and your Uber, Lyft, ride hail workers. So, a bit of a thorn in
yeah.
the side for some of the big companies. But
Mm,
yeah, hopefully it works out, right? Hopefully it means better streets and greener movement of goods and people. So I'm
yeah.
happy to
So
see it.
that's specifically for logistics players, right? Like, or do you think there's any plans for Seattle to incorporate it into their own kind of state, like city fleets?
So I think the most recent thing is geared towards Amazon style, like people doing
Yeah.
package delivery. That's a
Mhm.
good question if they have also tried to incentivize like at the city level. I know Portland was doing something like that.
Mm.
I don't want to lump all our Pacific Northwest cities together, but yeah, I mean, if anyone would be a good candidate, obviously it would be the government trying to get itself to do it as well. But I think if anything, if you're delivering to the government, they would want you to follow the rules. So
Yeah.
go Seattle. Love to see
Yeah.
it.
Sounds great.
And so the opposite of that. So if you're listening to this on Thanksgiving, tomorrow is Black Friday, and so more just American nonsense. Sorry, Sally, you got to bear with us.
We've got Black Friday as well.
Yeah, but you probably have some cute British name for it.
No, it's just Black Friday.
If you spell Friday like with an extra I and an E and a G and an H. Why do you have Black Friday if you don't have Thanksgiving? It's Black Friday is all about you're so stuffed to the gills, all you can do is shop. Anyways, pretend that you don't know what Black Friday is. It's our most important holiday, move over Christmas. And so yeah, it's basically America's big shopping day. And so everyone is rolling to the malls or having the mall roll to them. Again, thinking about delivery. But no, it's what I've always found fascinating about this is it's obviously the busiest day for shopping in the country. And so much of our landscape is built to support this one day where you have these humongous parking lots, parking garages, parking towers, whether it's your suburban malls or your downtown shopping districts. And even on Black Friday, you'll go and the lot will be half full, right? So it's sort of become a time honored tradition of all the kind of streets blog style sites taking photos of empty shopping mall parking lots and thinking,
Mm,
like, is there a better use for all this space? Could this be housing? Could this be parkland? Could this be anything but just asphalt?
yeah.
So I don't know. Does that part make it over to the UK too?
I think that no, it doesn't. But we also just have the opposite problem. Like I'm in a tiny town, living in a tiny town, and I went to a shopping center the other day, and I was like circling for like 20 minutes trying to find a car parking space. So I don't think
You don't have enough parking.
I don't think I don't.
Well, we gotta, take all this asphalt that we don't need and, helicopter lift it out
Yeah,
to some tiny UK town and give it to Stella so she can park the giant SUV that she lovingly drives around.
yeah, that's what we're all about.
That's the Zag promise. Well, okay, speaking of giant SUVs. So this one, a little bit schadenfreude. So Luminar, the hotshot LiDAR maker is in some serious trouble. So, kind of the play-by-play here. Volvo, which was its biggest customer and also a investor in it, basically just dropped its relationship because they were basically so worried that the company was insolvent that if they were reliant on them, that would cause supply chain issues. But sort of, damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you lose your biggest customer, and so now you're even more screwed. But they've been fighting bankruptcy for a couple months now, cutting jobs, losing its CFO. And it's sort of seeming like the wheels fell off earlier this year. The founder, who was, briefly like the world's youngest billionaire, Austin Russell, was pushed out, a little mysterious. They just said code of business conduct and ethics inquiry was the reason why. So that just makes you wonder. But
Mm.
yeah, they've been sued by shareholders over that too. But to me, the part that just sort of brings it full circle is, of course, they went public in 2020 via a SPAC at about a $3.4 billion valuation. And so these mobility SPACs, they've just been haunting the industry for, half a decade now. None of them
Mm.
worked out. You had the Virgin Galactics of the world and just all these things that up in smoke, no revenue projections. What could go wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah. I
I
think,
just, I feel bad. Like that's obviously some retail investors thought like, ooh, shiny, wave of the future and lost a bunch of money. So that's why the
mm,
SPAC thing's so sad. It's just like you're burning little idiots. So
yeah. No, it's a shame. I'm sure we'll see, some kind of develop with this very soon.
yeah. But as usual, plenty of good news to go with the bad in the AV space. So what else is going on?
So we have Bolt just so when we're listening, this will be a couple of days ago, but Bolt have just announced that they're entering the AV race. They've partnered with Pony AI to start driverless ride hailing across Europe. So this is one of the biggest Western shared mobility operators entering the scene. I think it was only a matter of time.
Yeah.
They've been quite,
Bolt's sort of like the European Uber, right? Just for our American
yeah,
centric
yes,
listeners. And they've also always been, I'd say, like on the scrappy side, they didn't burn trillions of dollars to get where they are. They've been operationally lean. And so have they been
yeah.
sort of slower to invest in the AV space under that same kind of mindset?
I can't say if it's under that mindset, but I suppose this is their first AV move, their first
Yeah.
real push. So I suppose in the wider landscape, maybe it's, a bit slower and
Yeah.
a bit more
I'd say
disciplined.
that's to me, that sounds like they've been,
Yeah.
let's say conservative or
Yeah.
thoughtful.
And
But,
they also
and
have a,
also Pony AI has been on a little bit of a partnership spree too, right? They partnered with Uber too. Pony
yeah,
is Chinese, right? Correct me if I'm
yeah.
wrong.
I think they've got partnerships now across 8 countries in the world, but yeah, we're always covering various partnerships of theirs as well. So it was interesting. They haven't specified which markets they're going to start with in Europe, but it's going to be non-EU and EU countries to begin with next year. So we'll be following that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
then
then a little bit closer to the ground. What else?
we also have, so for delivery robots, we've got Starship Technologies partnering with Uber Eats, and that's a global partnership that's going to see delivery robots that can travel, they can complete 2 mile, I think it's 2 mile deliveries in 30 minutes. It's going to be starting in the UK this year in Leeds, the city of Leeds. And then it's going to be expanding across Europe next year. And then it will be joining you in the US in 2027.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, obviously I'm a big delivery bot head. And so this one's interesting. So Starship, yeah, I'd say the kind of granddaddy of the space, and they've been in Europe and the US for a decade now. So
Mm,
it's the partnership that's new. And so do you know, I know in the UK they were in like Milton Keynes doing kind of
mm.
urban deliveries. Have they talked about where this partnership with Uber in the UK is meant to be? Is it, across the country? Is it, urban campuses?
It's starting in the city of Leeds, which is north of England. I think that's the only city I know that's been announced for the UK. That's starting next month in December.
Yeah. And I should add, they just raised a bunch of money, so they're kind of like back in growth mode. And so, yeah, the partnership with Uber here in the US, that's new too. They kind of classically were mostly partnered with Grubhub in the US
Mhm.
because they both had a sort of campus focus. So, it's been interesting to me that they've been sort of city focused in Europe, but in the US, they've been much more of a college campus play. And
Interesting.
so I think in one way that's, like a sustainable market. You kind of, you can map the domain, you know which vendors you're working with, but eventually you're going to run out of colleges. So I think it's
Mm,
just a matter of time until they kind of go into the cities, and then they got to compete with Serve and Coco and DoorDash's own Dot now. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
a hot space, a lot of bots.
Yeah, soon we'll be seeing them.
Yeah, yeah. And they'll be seeing you.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that kind of just reminds me, um, I wrote a piece last week that got a lot of, interest. People were writing in, basically my thoughts about how robotaxis won't mean the end of car ownership. So just trying to, I don't know, be negative, contrarian, I don't know, deflating a bubble. But you always see people talking about how, oh, this latest wave in, AV self-driving investment, we're days away from the last car ever being sold. And it just reminded me so much. Every wave of shared mobility, we've sort of heard this. We heard it with Uber, Lyft, and Bolts. We heard it before that with car sharing. When I was part of the team creating Turo, we were probably guilty of championing that view, but also hearing it repeated in the media. And I probably, I kind of thought I was true at the time. I was maybe naive and optimistic, but people just love their dang cars. And
Mm,
basically 20 years into the shared mobility revolution, the data doesn't show that there's been a decrease in car ownership. If anything, there's been an increase here in the US. And so once you've been in an AV, the first time it's amazing, it's mesmerizing, it feels like the Jetsons. And then the second time it's just, I'm in a car. So I don't think the behavior would be all that different
yeah,
from being in an Uber. Maybe if the costs come way down, and even then it's hard for me to imagine the costs being more than, I don't know, half, a third of what an Uber costs, because you still got all the maintenance and repairs and insurance. Maybe people will make some marginal changes, but I think it'll just mean way more VMT, because if it's cheaper to drive, you'll drive more.
yeah,
And then I don't know, like there's so many reasons that car ownership is ingrained in the US. Insurance
yeah,
is underpriced. It's a vehicle is kind of self-expression, it's your storage. And so I don't think that you tap into that when you've got this, corporate vehicle that you can't leave your bags in, that has to pay the full price for insurance and liabilities.
yeah,
I'm bullish on AVs, but I'm bearish on the idea that it'll mean the end of the privately owned vehicle. So
yeah,
what
I
do you
agree.
think?
I agree with you. I really liked this piece as well, but I think it's mainly, I think it'll be cost and convenience that just will make people really reluctant to give up the cars. But I do wonder how, have you heard of, Tensor?
Yep. Yep.
So players like that are making private AV private AVs for personal customers and then making them available through ride-hailing platforms like Lyft, and now they're also
Yep.
doing the same with green mobility. I wonder how that would change things with people
Yeah.
owning their own AV, and then when they're not using it at night, the AV will just be deployed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad that someone is trying that, right? And that's sort of the same as the original Tesla robotaxi model, right? That Elon was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
your car will work for you at night." And I was at the Automobility, which is like the auto show, LA Auto Show's press and tech day here last week, and I got to see the Tensor in person. And it's a
Mhm.
sleek looking automobile, and it's got these cool, expressive light bars that sort of communicate what it's thinking and doing. And yeah, they're going to give it a shot for sure. I think what we saw with Turo is that it's not really so much that Joe Schmo wants to have his one car, work at night. You sort of end up with these smaller fleet operators. So you're not a Hertz or an Avis, but you're a company that owns 20 cars, 100 cars. And you might not have like a brand name because the platform kind of does the marketing for you. But so that just means more cars being bought.
Yeah, true.
But I don't know. Then the question is, right, like, imagine your car does go work for you, and so goes out at night and comes back in the morning, and all of a sudden, the seats aren't in the position you left them. There's a scuff in the back seat, smells funny, and you made, $60. Like, is it worth it
Mhm.
to clean up a mysterious fluid for $60? So yeah, just like most people don't
Yeah.
actually want another job, and that job is cleaning up after your car.
Very optimistic take here.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, certainly we will see. And speaking of future modes of moving around, that's why I'm so excited to talk to Kevin Savage at Delivery Mates. So let's tune into that. And we're back. Today we're joined by Kevin Savage, Chief Operating Officer of Delivery Mates. Hey, Kevin.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm pleased to have you on the show. You're a real sort of, I'd say, whiz of the logistics space, which is always fun to talk about. As listeners often know. We get a little bit into the background of the entrepreneur before we get into the company. So, what's the Kevin story? How did you become a logistics hero?
Yeah, I've been in logistics for a long time, as you can see. So I've always been in supply chain and logistics. So go back as far as automotive logistics in the very early days, through into third party logistics. So we then became a fourth party logistics through Excel, and then into DHL supply chain. And then I really got into last mile when I joined Amazon, which then became Amazon Logistics, of course, which is a large
I've heard of them.
organisation now. And I had 5 really good years there. And then I decided to really want to do some innovation work. So I worked on a little bit of consultancy, then joined Delivery Mates in 2021, just after COVID.
An interesting time for delivery, obviously.
Yeah.
What's the elevator pitch then? Give us delivery mates in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, I think the first story is when I first joined, it's not called Delivery Mates, it's called Amiga Telematics and Logistics Limited, which means nothing. So Delivery Mates is exactly what it says on the tin. We are a last mile or first mile delivery company. We've then focused around sustainability very quickly into the tenure. So we now, I don't like to say leading in the UK, but there's been others, and we can chat about that a bit later. But
Sure.
we,
Some
we're
changes at the top of the leaderboard.
I think we're close to that top of the leaderboard, so we can do sustainable logistics at a very attractive commercial rate. So one of the things that stuck with me is customers won't pay more for sustainability. They just don't.
And when you say sustainability, you're referring to the fleet. Like I see a lot of quadricycles, pedal powered delivery vehicles. What else is in there that makes it so sustainable?
So walking, reducing congestion, really. I think there's a few things. We all talk about CO2, but we don't talk about congestion. And if anybody's driven in cities, and as many other listeners will do, it takes you forever to get anywhere. And if you drive in London, then it just takes you. I think now we're slower than the horse and cart. So you know, it is a real problem in cities as more people traverse it. More people means more stuff, as I put it, more things to deliver to people,
More
and
commerce.
therefore we focus around sustainability and sustainable urban logistics. So how do we do that in cities? Because the current method is both expensive and broken.
And so then why do companies choose delivery mates? Is it because it's greener, it's the right thing to do? Is it cheaper? Is it get there faster? Some combo of all the above?
I think it's a combination. Sustainability at no extra cost was something I picked up really early on in talking to customers.
Okay.
And so you got to be market led. If customers aren't going to pay more, you need to find a way of being more efficient. So we run our own, it's driven by our smart technology, really. So routing, the ability to inject on routes, the ability to find the most optimum times of delivery. Part of it has to be technology driven. Is the
Sure.
But there's a big human asset to it and finding the right riders, etc. So for delivery mates, it is about making sure you give the customers and sectors what they need. That's why they come to us. That's why they listen to us. So we we work right across sectors. So everything from what is called the courier express parcel market, so they're the normal carriers that you would see every day, right through to healthcare, food, e-commerce companies.
Sure. And then you sort of stole my next question of what customer profiles tend to work with you. But so when you say food, are you thinking groceries? Are you thinking prepared restaurant meals? Both?
Yeah, our main food is in London, and it's
Mhm.
in large scale food deliveries. So we no
Like
longer
catering?
deliver. We aren't delivering a pizza from the local pizza shop. There are others that do that much better than we do, really.
Sure.
So we stay away. But it's where people want large amounts of food in a very tight window. Um, for a number of people. So average basket size, 300 pounds. So you can imagine that's a lot of food.
That
They
sounds
go
like a
into
party.
bites,
Yeah.
and you have to be quick. So your food doesn't need to get cold. Your food doesn't need to get hot if it's cold food. And and you need to be quick onto those deliveries, and it's a plus or minus 5 minutes at both collection and delivery.
That's pretty prompt. And then, so other verticals being e-commerce, car parts, I think you mentioned. Any, things that make each of these types of deliveries interesting, unique, different?
Yeah, I think when you talk to e-commerce companies, particularly when they're not shipping through the largest e-commerce platform that's around, you know, independents sometimes do that, and therefore it just gets buried into the big Amazon machine. The smaller ones are trying to find a niche in the market. So one of our customers is in flowers, and that's a very emotional product to go and deliver. Because if you're delivering flowers to somebody, it's a special occasion, or
There's
you want
there's
to
a
say
reason.
sorry, or it has to be delivered. Otherwise, what's the use of delivering flowers? So we do a significant number of those in and around London every single day, um, and that's a really nice product to be out there delivering as well as other things. But
And yeah, you've been very coy, but are there any specific brands you're allowed to mention that you particularly like working with delivery mates that you've found, you've really learned something from handling their orders?
well, I suppose. We work for Amazon, yeah? So everybody, I think most people in that, work in some shape or form from Amazon. I worked for Amazon for nearly 5 years, so I understand it. One thing you can do by working for somebody of that size and scale, and that they're absolutely obsessed by customers, is you can learn that and bring that into your business.
Mhm.
So all of the good practices you learn by working for a large organization like that, you can then deliver that same level of care, service right across all of your customer base.
And what about, from the perspective of the couriers, from the perspective of the cities? Like, there's so many interesting elements involved in making sustainable delivery work. What's it like from the other perspectives?
One of the key components is somewhere to operate from. There's a term in sustainable logistics been around a while called micro hubs. So the idea of having a small local hyper-local delivery point is a key factor, and one that took us a little while to learn through London. And we were engaged with local councils, and I think one of the first ones, and it's publicised, it's out there, and people can go and read about it, was with Westminster. And we took over 6 car parking spaces and ran 10 cargo bikes out of 6 car parking spaces. It was literally,
That's
we
great.
brought
Yeah.
the product in, we gave it into the routes, put them into the vehicles, and they went out every day. And that was a very quick learning how you can then bring product into the cities, and then distribute it in a very tight sort of, I suppose it's almost like the square mile of in and around micro hubs. That's when you're at your most efficient, and you need to, but don't want to disrupt the residents and the stakeholders. If there isn't, nobody likes freight on their doorstep. So when it's in an underground car park, it's quite nice. Nobody wants to see it. It needs to be invisible. And bikes do that. Bikes absolutely do.
Is that a pretty consistent experience across all your markets, or is there something different about operating in London versus other cities you found?
Yeah, I think it's about density of population. So, our most recent one is working down with Portsmouth with Solent Transport, and they have come together with us and helped us get started in a new city. It's a slightly larger, more refined micro hub than the 6 car parking spaces. Um, and it's a really purpose built that we're working through with the year. So we not only working there, but we're working with the University of Portsmouth as well. So looking at that data and looking at the routing and trying to refine the technology even further. So whilst there's not the same population, some of the parts work, and some of the parts you have to do slightly differently.
Sure. What can you share about the actual courier's experience? Delivering these things on foot or pedaling around in the city. How do you keep it interesting? How do you keep it safe? How do you keep it a enjoyable enough
Yeah.
job?
Yeah, I mean, the organisation's nothing without the riders and drivers. They're just not. This is a people business. It's by far our biggest expense, but it's absolutely the component that makes everything tick. Most of the rides have some really interesting stories, actually. What I always tell people is we were just about to launch our first major customer. We got 15 cargo bikes out on the road on the same day, and I took one. I took one of them on that day. I have to say the interest from people out on the streets when you got 15 of these things coming along a London road, there was tourists just videoing it and photographing it. I don't think
Sure.
I've been photographed as much in my life in that sort of 1 mile
It
ride. It
makes a
was like
scene. Yeah.
incredible. And the riders telling the same thing. So they have a certain amount of because delivery people, whether they're drivers or riders, they get quite a rough press. And it's usually when something goes wrong, you didn't make a
Sure.
delivery or something. Our riders, we train them with the use of technology. You're actually not so much of a nuisance because you're using bicycle lanes, using bus lanes, parking is easier. Um, People actually, one of the riders told me, "I'm glad to see you."
That's
Whereas
yeah.
absolutely the van
So
driver
that
just
that
blocks
warms
the
the
road.
heart.
So, and so but there is a whole range of demographics that come in. So we have people who are at university and will work a few days a week. We've got people that are just starting off in their careers and over there. Um, Definitely the age profile of a rider via driver is different because of insurances. If you need to be a driver, insurance is usually 25. But we can capture other people. Um, 10 years longer, the people stay with us longer as riders than they do when they used to be van drivers. So all the metrics tell us that it's a nice thing to do. It's not nice when it's dark and rainy in winter. It's sun shining, you've got your shorts on, you're on and on. It's quite nice.
So there's been a couple other players that have done sustainable delivery in the UK before. I don't want to kick anyone while they're down, but let's say one of them starts with the letter Z. What are you guys doing differently? What have you learned from some of the stumbles others have seen?
Mm. Yeah. I think there's 2 or 3 elements. Let me try and think about them in logical order. But what the first one I think is we have invested heavily over a period of time on technology, you know, letting the data determine our decisions and letting riders have the ability to override and for the machine to learn about what was the best route. And that's been a differentiator. The second one, I think, is on the 2 big casualties, really, that brought a lot of investment in order to try and build some IT or to expand their operations. And really, that then became a chalice around the neck that they got to grow at a speed that the investors were expecting them to grow. So
Sure.
when you chase the market, you chase the price down. When you chase the price down, there's not enough profit to reinvest in, and so on and so forth. So I think there was a little bit of that piece where we've different. We stayed in London really until really in the last 18 months is the only time we've started to look. So Portsmouth being one, we were engaged with Solent and Portsmouth for 6 months before we made that decision. We did some background, we talked to some customers. We got a base customer to go in there before we said yes. So we are planning our expansion under our own commercial steam, if that makes sense. I think we learned looking at those 2 and thinking, yeah, people are interested in sustainability. Probably a bit more investment 12 months ago than there is today, but they were interested in it. So finding investment wasn't difficult. But if you took that investment into the business, you better have a very robust business plan and a customer plan to take it with you.
Yeah. So listening to customers first instead of just following the investor demand for the
Yeah.
instant ROI. That makes total sense. So wrapping up, it's a lot of things changing delivery. Well, one, where do you see the world of delivery in 2030? And then 2, where does that put delivery mates? What's the path look like from here?
Yeah. Well, where it puts delivery mates is where I want us to be. I want us to be leading and challenging the status quo. I want us to find new, innovative ways of doing things. I, I think we're in that curve now where we've got all the case studies. I think know how to do this. Can we do this at the next level of scale? So last year we did 2.9 million deliveries, 100 tons of carbon saved. We know the stats. This year we'll do a lot better than that. So I think we'll see ourselves still leading. That's really what I see as leading. Size scale doesn't really matter, but I think we'll be leading the charge on this. But I do think when you look at the work that sort of Amazon are doing, or the work that DPD have done, the work that InPost on out-of-home deliveries is coming into the markets. I think all of those coming together, we'll see more and more deliveries made by other than vans. I still think vans will be, because it's only 4 years ago, 4 5 years away, they'll probably still be the predominant
I
mode
think
of
there'll still be a couple
transport.
vans in 2030. Safe bet.
I think it's a safe bet, given there's 500,000 out there today. So I think there'll be vans, but I think the proportion of alternative solutions, whether they're walking, riding, anything that is, what do they call it? Zero tailpipe. Well, you need to take emissions out. So I think that the world's there. Drones have a part to play, but it's out of cities. It's, over into the Shetland Islands and things like that. I
Sure.
think there's some parts to do. But I think cities will be, when I look at a city in 2030 and I look at the delivery makeup, it will be significantly different. Significantly different. You'll see more and more places you can't drive, so that will restrict the van solution. It'll drive in alternatives, whether they're walking trolleys, they're replenishment on route. So yeah, there's lots of different ways in which you can do that. And there will be people collecting their parcels on the way home from the tube station, the bus station, as people travel more on buses. So I think I'd like to see freight moving like passenger transport. Reliability, not always, it doesn't always go to plan because of its operations, but being like passenger transport, it's there. There are multi choices. You can now get on a scooter, a bike, a tube, a bus,
Yeah.
autonomous cars are not too far away as well. So I think that all autonomy is an interesting. Don't think it'll be quite here by 2030. So what do I see? Less places to drive in cities. That is going to be one of the factors that people are going to have to change the delivery methods.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I
a
think
multimodal future for
customers like
freight.
choices.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, what an exciting vision for cities. What an exciting vision for logistics. And it's great to see you guys leading that charge. So thanks, Kevin. Appreciate you stopping by.